to tell President Trump, if you invade Greenland with military force, you will be impeached. So he is feeling the pressure from everybody right now. And
That's interesting. Sorry, Angie, I'm just because one of our guests is agreeing with that.
Have you ever watched a political interview where someone walks in sounding completely confident, only for one simple fact check to change the entire direction of the conversation? Well, that's exactly what you're about to see. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, political interviews can be unpredictable. Sometimes they turn into heated debates, and other times they become a test of who can back up their claims when they're challenged in real time. That's what makes this exchange so fascinating. In this clip, a Republican strategist confidently presents several talking points surrounding President Trump's foreign policy, expecting those claims to go largely unchallenged. But what follows isn't simply another television interview where bold statements are allowed to pass without scrutiny. Instead, Victoria Derbyshire does what many viewers expect experienced journalists to do. Rather than moving on or accepting the claims at face value, she immediately presses for evidence, challenges the accuracy of the statements being made, and forces the conversation back to the facts. And that's where the discussion starts to shift. Because it's one thing to make a confident political claim, it's another thing entirely when someone across the table knows the subject well enough to stop the conversation and ask the obvious follow-up questions that many viewers are already thinking. As the interview unfolds, you'll notice something interesting. Every time a sweeping claim is made, Victoria refuses to let it stand without scrutiny. Instead of allowing broad political messaging to dominate the conversation, she keeps bringing the discussion back to what can actually be verified. That's what makes this exchange worth watching from beginning to end. Whether you agree with either side politically or not, this is a reminder of what a live interview is supposed to look like: questions followed by answers, claims followed by scrutiny, and assertions followed by evidence. So pay close attention, because this conversation escalates quickly. And one particular fact check completely changes the tone of the interview. Now let's get into it.
Let's bring in Republican strategist Angie Wong. I mean, can you help us? What do you think President Trump's next move is?
Well, I don't believe that President Trump is an imperialist. I think he definitely wants to make a deal here. And as your speakers have said, he is the art of the deal president, and he has long been known to throw out the most extreme, most outrageous deals just to see what everyone's reactions will be and who's going to be pushing back. And in this case, he's seen almost everyone in the EU push back on this.
And forgive me, Angie Wong, he may also have seen President Putin be absolutely delighted about what's going on, because it potentially is a split between the US and its allies in NATO and in Europe. The only person happy at the moment is Vladimir Putin.
Well, he could be seeing it that way, or he could be seeing it as Putin getting isolated. Remember all the other geopolitical movements that have been made in the last few weeks. We have secured Venezuela. We're going after Cuba now.
You haven't secured Venezuela. I'm sorry, you have not secured Venezuela. It's the same regime. It's just a different person in charge.
And the Trump administration is all over the former vice president, now interim president there. So there's been a lot of movement. It could very well be, at the end of the day, when the historians write this book, that we are actually trying to isolate Putin and cut off any sort of money pipelines, any sort of trade pipelines. Remember, all of this deal, yes, we're talking about rare earth minerals, we're talking about national security for the U.S., but we're also talking about the Polar Silk Road. If the U.S. can control that shipping lane, along with the Panama Canal, we essentially then can control the Western Hemisphere as far as trade and shipping goes. That is
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to ask you, why do you think President Trump wants to own Greenland when you know you've got this treaty, the 1951 Defence Treaty between Greenland/Denmark and the US? It allows you to deploy thousands more US troops there, to build more bases. During the Cold War, there were something like 15,000 US troops there. There's now about 200. Why do you have to actually own it? Why can't you work with them to send a load more US troops?
Well, the messaging here is that President Trump wants to build the Golden Dome, which is a $175 billion project, very similar to what Israel has. And he needs Greenland and the seas around it to do so. Now, it's not impossible. It's not never been heard of before that we do annex and purchase lands. We did that with Alaska. We did that with the Louisiana Purchase, the Mexican secession, and other places. So this is part of that. But we're not going in with troops. That's a very far-fetched idea that we would go in with military force. I think President Trump really does want to make a deal.
Just one more thought. Donald Trump said in that exchange with Norway's Prime Minister he wants complete and total control of Greenland. If he can threaten a NATO ally to surrender territory and other allies that if they don't come to a deal, tariffs will be imposed upon them, does that mean NATO is effectively dead?
I don't think I think there's a lot of pressuring. There's a lot of positioning right now. Even the U.S. senators have come out over the weekend to tell President Trump, if you invade Greenland with military force, you will be impeached. So he is feeling the pressure from everybody right now. And
that's interesting. Sorry, Angie, I'm just because one of our guests is agreeing with that. And Lord Gladstone.
So after watching that entire exchange, I think the biggest takeaway isn't necessarily who spoke the longest or who sounded the most confident. It's about what happened the moment specific claims were challenged in real time. That's what made this interview so interesting. Throughout the discussion, there were several broad statements about foreign policy and geopolitical developments. But rather than simply letting those claims pass, Victoria Derbyshire repeatedly stopped the conversation to ask the obvious follow-up questions and clarify the facts being presented. And that's exactly what many viewers expect from a live political interview. Whether you lean left, right, or somewhere in the middle, strong claims deserve strong scrutiny. That's how meaningful discussions happen. One moment that really stood out was the exchange over Venezuela. A confident claim was made suggesting the situation had effectively been resolved, but Victoria immediately pushed back, pointing out that the political reality on the ground was far more complicated than that description suggested. That completely changed the direction of the conversation. Instead of allowing a headline-style talking point to dominate the interview, the discussion suddenly became about evidence, context, and whether the claim actually reflected the facts. And honestly, that's where experienced interviewers often make the biggest difference. They're not there simply to nod along. They're there to ask the uncomfortable questions, challenge sweeping statements, and give viewers the information they need to make up their own minds. That doesn't mean every answer has to satisfy everyone. Political debates are always going to produce disagreements. But when someone makes a bold assertion on live television, it's entirely reasonable for a journalist to ask, is that actually accurate? That's accountability. It's also why interviews like this generate so much attention online. People aren't just watching for the political arguments. They're watching to see what happens when those arguments are tested under pressure. In this exchange, several moments of pressure were clearly visible. Whether you agreed with Victoria's questioning or with the Republican strategist's broader arguments. One thing is difficult to ignore. This wasn't an interview where claims went unchallenged. It was a genuine back and forth, and that's what kept it engaging from beginning to end. Now, I'd love to hear your perspective. Who do you think made the stronger case during this discussion? Did Victoria Derbyshire ask the questions that needed to be asked, or do you think the Republican strategist effectively defended her position? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next political analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.